Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Kyle here. Hope you're doing absolutely wonderful. And today in this video, we're gonna be talking about this right here. This is the Kaleido M10 Sniper. And it may be one of the most interesting home roasters that I've ever seen. And it might be one of the best home roasters you've never heard of. And at the end of this video, you should know if this is a coffee roaster you should buy or if this one is. Let's go. Okay, I'm excited for this video for many reasons. Now, we started a coffee roasting series on this channel not too long ago. We've taken a bit of a break, and this is going to continue that series. Now, this is a coffee roaster that is very interesting, so regardless of if you're into roasting, you're not, maybe you're a coffee professional, or you're just watching this for entertainment, this should be a video that intrigues you because this is a very interesting piece of technology. They've been making a few different models. They have a model as small as a sample roaster of 50 grams, and this model at the M10 goes all the way up to 1.2 kilograms of coffee. They also have a few models in between those sizes, so depending on how much coffee you want to roast, you can save some money and get a smaller unit. That being said, the specs do change depending on the unit that you buy. But today we're going to talk about this one, which is their flagship, the M10 Sniper. I've been using this for over 8 months now. So today I want to give you my thoughts on this unit specifically, thoughts on the Kaleido brand. Let's go over an overview of how this works because it's very different than the Aillio Bullet and it's very different than many other roasters on the market. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what I'm reading right now. Now, I've been an advocate for Standard Magazine for so long on this channel and I cannot recommend them enough. This is a specialty coffee magazine, and this is a beautiful piece of art for any coffee table or any enthusiast or anybody who just wants to learn more. Right now, I'm reading an amazing article about Taiwan and the coffee scene from this incredible country. And it's articles like these from Standard that really open my eyes to so many elements within this industry, and I cannot recommend them enough. So right now, you can sign up for free. A free trial, you can try out this magazine, there's no strings attached, and every magazine that you get from Standard comes with coffee. I mean, you get to read, you get to drink. It is a good time. They've been a sponsor of this channel for years now, and I cannot recommend them enough. So do me a huge favor, if you want to check them out, use the link down in the description below. They track that link specifically, and it would help this channel out. Sign up for a trial for Standard Magazine, get some free coffee, and thank you, Standard, so much for sponsoring this video. So as you can probably tell, this machine is all made of metal. There are very few plastics with the Kaleido, and I think that's a really interesting take on a coffee roaster, especially for the home setting. I actually really like this stainless steel look. It reminds me of a kitchen appliance, and I think it's just beautiful. Now, how this works is you have this massive machine that has a drum inside. And so many coffee roasters, many production roasters will have a large drum. That drum will spin, the coffee beans will be inside that drum, and there's either a flame or a heat source underneath that drum that heats up the drum. And then there's also hot air coming through the drum. So you have conductive, you have convective energy, and then you have radiant energy from heat coming off of the drum. The Kaleido is not that way. It is very different in how it roasts coffee. Now, if I open up the side panel here, you can actually see inside this unit. Now, the Kaleido comes with this little tablet. Depending on the model that you get, you may or may not get this tablet. But on this, you can adjust the drum speed. So you can see in there, there's this great. Now, rather than the traditional heat source or a flame underneath the drum, this doesn't work that way. This uses a very interesting radiant technology that they call carbon fiber infrared direct fire heating system. And essentially it's two infrared heat sources that are above the drum itself, one on each side, basically apply radiant heat to the drum itself, and then the coffee beans through the drum through that perforated drum. As well as you have the ability to adjust the airflow that they have listed here as smoke. Don't love the name of that, but you can adjust the power of the infrared lights in this drum. You can adjust the fan speed, and you can adjust the roller speed as well. Now, that's how it roasts coffee, but beyond that, the workflow is really great. You have a large hopper up top here. You can leave coffee up here, and with this little wooden lever, it'll actually drop the coffee beans into the drum, something that the Aillio Bullet and many other coffee roasters in this price range lack. You either need to remove like a little rubber piece and then pour your coffee beans in with a funnel. This one feels very professional. It feels very premium for a coffee roaster that is less money than many of its competitors. Now, on the front here, you have a little trier, so as your coffee's roasting, you can pull this out, take a look at your coffee beans as they're tumbling in the coffee roaster. You have a door that's magnetic that'll be held open here that pours into the cooling tray. Now this cooling tray is nothing special, but it's just a perforated metal tray. There are also fans behind the cooling tray, which is pretty common, but this one here sucks air through the cooling tray, through these little holes, to cool those beans down so that once you drop them after the roast, they don't continue to roast beyond what you desire. On the side, you have this little tray that opens up and holds all the chaff. As you can see here, I have some chaff from my previous roast. On the back of this roaster, it's got this giant exhaust pipe. Looks really cool. It looks like something off of like a car or something that's not a coffee roaster. And on the back of the roaster as well, you have all the computer electronics. And then like I mentioned earlier, it has this little USB cable that comes off of the roaster. And if you have the included tablet, you'll have the controls on here, including a chart. This also has built-in Bluetooth to connect to a computer. So no USB cable needed. In fact, they don't recommend that at all. You would connect to Artesian, which is a software that you can use to track your roaster. So as I mentioned earlier, I've been using this for a while. I really understand this roaster, I believe, and I really want to give my pros and cons, what things I really love about this roaster, what I don't. And then I also want to compare it to that Aillio Bullet, because I really believe if you're in the market for a 1 kilogram coffee roaster, you're going to be between these two. Now the Kaleido M10 is, depending on where you get it, a lot cheaper than the Bullet. Right now, this is less than $3,000, and for something that has Bluetooth, has infrared technology, and has all the features that it has, incredible build quality, all of that, it's very intriguing. I know that Joe at Espresso Outlet just started selling these Kaleido roasters, and Joe's amazing, but depending on where you are, you can get these on AliExpress, you can get these on different websites around the world. But I want to talk about some things I love about the Kaleido first, and then we'll talk about things I don't. Everything is very thick stainless steel, it's not thin, and it just really screams high quality. It's incredibly heavy. It came to me and shipped to me in a crate versus the Bullet obviously comes in like a cardboard box. Things like the hopper on the top are a huge plus. And this one, I can allow greens to sit on the hopper in my between batch protocol while I'm heating this roaster up and cooling down the beans from the previous roast, getting ready to drop my next batch. That's a huge plus. And just kind of multitasking with coffee roasting is busy enough as is. I also love that I can quickly clean this. Pulling out the chaff from the side, I don't have to take this apart or unclip anything. It's really easy just to dump this and keep on roasting. And I also really love the idea of the infrared technology. In conductive heat transfer, you get that direct contact with the bean to the hot drum on the side. When it comes to a roaster like this, there's very little, if not any, conductive heat transfer. It's all radiant and convection. Now, if used correctly, that's gonna leave the coffee to be incredibly clean. There's not gonna be an overwhelming roasty attribute from the roaster. Depending on how you profile it, that's a whole nother conversation. The roaster's not gonna leave any scorching or any facing that you might find in roasting defects from roasters that use a traditional drum style, depending on how they implement that heat to that drum. And the results do show. In testing, I've roasted many coffees side by side with our production roaster with September Coffee, and the coffee I wouldn't necessarily is better from the Kaleido. It's very different. I think it's more forgiving and it's much easier to get really well developed coffee without underdeveloping it. But the Kaleido can also connect to Artesian or other softwares on your computer, and that's a huge plus. Not using a proprietary software from Kaleido is always a plus for me. That said, connecting it to the computer is a process. You've got to walk through the manual, and it took me probably a half an hour to figure out how to connect this to the computer. Hopefully that's improved since I've had to connect it to the computer. I can't speak to that, but I will say it wasn't a fluid system where it was just plug and play. If you're not computer savvy, you might want some help connecting this. And also, like I said, if you get the tablet version or the one that has the USB, you can connect this to this tablet, or you can connect it to a Surface tablet or another PC. That said, let's talk about some of the cons. This is super clunky. I don't enjoy this at all. In fact, I don't use these graphs on this tablet. As a professional coffee roaster, I find them too small. I can't really see what's happening in terms of rate of rise. It's just not giving me the resolution I need. I'm not speaking of like resolutions per pixels, but it's just not big enough for me to see what's really happening. For a home roaster, you might not need that, but for me, I find it just a little quirky. Things like smoke as its air convection adjustment, that's a weird name to call that. I think it's more of like a translation thing. And then you can mark everything in here, like beans in, temperature, dry end, first crack, all of that. You can set up auto roast where it can do everything automatically. My experience with that has been hit or miss. I haven't had great experiences with the automation from this, but that's to be expected, and most roasters don't have great automation, to be quite honest. It's very very rare. And if you do get one, it's probably very expensive. The Aillio bullet has automation, and even that I've had hit or miss experiences with. This one here is a little more quirky. That's just my experience. But to be quite honest, if I'm using this roaster, I'm using it on Artesian, which allows you to control everything from the software on your computer. So you don't have to worry about using the tablet if you don't want to, though I did find the tablet, if I had any issues with the Bluetooth or the Bluetooth cut out for any reasons, you've got to jump over to the tablet, and that can just be less than ideal. Also, let's go back to the side tray here. While I think this is really nice and easy to use, I am concerned if you don't keep your coffee roaster clean. I would be dumping this after every single roast, and I would not allow this to build up beyond 1, maybe 2 roasts. This is directly under the roller. There's nothing in between. It's just the roller itself dropping the chaff into this tray underneath. Now, above the roller are those infrared heaters. So if you let this get too high, it would be very easy to cause a fire in this roaster, especially if you're roasting darker. So something to be aware of, just be sure that you're cleaning this machine, because I could see this being an issue if you didn't take care of your machine. Something that, like the Aillio bullet, is a little more forgiving on. Now, speaking of the Aillio bullet, this is a very traditional drum style. If you open up the door here, you can see a big, thick metal drum inside the Aillio bullet. This has that perforated drum. I do love how the bullet has all of its controls on the roaster. You can use that attached tablet, but I would love some kind of control here. That said, for some people, that might not be a big deal. And then on the back here of the bullet, you have the chaff collector that has to come undone. It's completely separated, and it's easier to have 3, 4, 5 roasts of chaff built up in here if needed. But with the bullet, you have to take a piece off the roaster during roast at the back of the roaster. It's just a pain in the butt to change the chaff in a production day. I've tried it before, and it's just not as nice to use. The bullet, though, does have one nice feature, and that's its exhaust in a vertical motion. I really have always loved this, and you can even see in the studio, we have a pipe here so that you can put the roaster underneath that pipe. We have a fan that sucks the air through that and outside of the studio. With the Kaleido, you have this horizontal exhaust pipe, so you have to really makeshift something to catch all that exhaust. You can't just have a port behind it. I find it doesn't work very well. You need to get something and clamp it onto the back of that exhaust pipe, which isn't a big deal, but you definitely got to figure that out and make something for your exhaust. The cooling tray on the Aillio, it's a big bowl and it sucks air through, captures any of the chaff. This one here doesn't have anything to capture chaff once you drop a batch, so it shoots hot air through the back through these fans. And if you don't have anything behind the roaster, or if you're in a small setting, it will make a mess. Chaff will go flying everywhere. This one also heats up a lot quicker than the bullet because it doesn't have that big mass of a metal drum, and it's just got a small grated drum. It heats up very fast. It's very efficient in that regards, though this takes a lot more power. I need to upgrade my breaker to be able to be a 20 amp breaker here in Canada to be able to compensate for this roaster, where this roaster you could plug into a 15 amp and it was fine. This one has a higher wattage than the bullet for whatever reason. And the one last thing I'll say comparing these side by side here is that the bullet has a wonderful little trier, and it's very small, but it works really well. It captures the beans really quickly. I find the trier on this Kaleido, I find the placement is right in the center of the drum. And so as beans are falling, I find they go right over the trier, especially if I'm doing a smaller batch. If you're doing a full kilo, maybe not as much of an issue. Oh, and one other thing, I have never enjoyed the fact that the bullet's door just has always felt like an afterthought, where the Kaleido has a really nice feature. It's got this locking mechanism that you can twist, and you can pull this up and magnetically stays open. A few other things I really want to mention here. It's a very interesting looking roaster. It's definitely polarizing. You either love it or hate it, and you need to tell me what you think, because I would love to know, is it beautiful? This to me looks like Transformers meets a turkey. This is very interesting in the fact that it's smoke incinerating for the most part. So the smoke that it creates is far less than the bullet. The bullet has no smoke incineration, this does. And I definitely got to say, it's not as user-friendly as something like the bullet. I do find that this can be a little frustrating if you've never roasted before. But if you're dedicated and you're willing to learn, you can absolutely roast some good coffee on this. But I would say have some patience. Have some patience in trying this roaster, because I don't think it's as user-friendly. I think it's a little quirkier than something like the bullet or other roasters on the market. So would I recommend the Kaleido M10? Well, I've used it for 7 months. I put it up against the bullet. I've put it through its paces. I made sure I've tried everything about this. It's got a lot of pros. It's built like a tank. It has a great price point for what it does. And that's really important for most people if you're gonna try to roast coffee at home, saving money is always a huge concern. With Bluetooth, that connects with Artesian. Again, there's a few quirks like the actual bean tray here. I find it really hard to stir coffee beans in there as well because it's got all these square edges. The biggest analogy I can give here is that the Aillio Bullet would be your iPhone and this would be your Android. This is more open-ended. It's got a lot of design features that are really well thought through. That doesn't mean the Bullet's not powerful. I just feel it's a little more user-friendly. It just works out of the box. You don't have to worry about doing a ton of things to get the software working on your computer. It's different in that regards. But it really comes down to your preferences and what you're looking for in a roaster. The Bullet's much more expensive, and the Kaleido is just a little more quirky. But in terms of build quality, they're both fantastic, and that's what makes this really tough. So if I had to score this out of 10, I gave the Aillio Bullet an 8 in our last video. I'm gonna give the Kaleido M10 an 8 as well. I think it's got an equal ability to roast excellent coffee. It's got different quirks because the Bullet has its own quirks, but it's also got some interesting design features that I think are really intriguing for somebody who wants to roast coffee at home. I'll leave a link to the Kaleido down in the description below for Espresso Outlet. I love Joe and what he's doing. But now it's your turn. What do you think of this roaster? Is it interesting? Does it intrigue you over the Bullet? Do you prefer the Bullet if you are a roaster? Is roasting coffee at home such a weird niche that we just shouldn't even go down that path? Or is that exciting? Should we do that even more? I'll leave a link to our coffee roaster that we just launched last month and the link down below if you want to buy some coffee from us. Join our free coffee Discord down below as well, and check out the Patreon to be able to win free coffee every month and other gear that I give away. Love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all in the next video. Bye.